everyone! Welcome back to Book Talk with Brianne, episode 2. If you missed it, I did my first book talk a few weeks ago. It was The Goblet of Fire by Harry Potter. It's a terrible video, but it was the first book talk ever done. This week, I have read It by Stephen King. It's a mammoth of a book. I think epilogue and all, it comes to 1,153 pages. So, biggest book I've ever read by far. It's also the first Stephen King book I've ever read, and it was really, really good. So I'm gonna talk about it. For it took me 5 days-ish to finish it. The book's broken up into 5 parts, so I just read a part a day. Each one's 200, 300 pages long. I could usually read a bit more than that a day, but I just found I felt like I was going really fast in this book, but I wasn't actually going that fast. So it took me about 5 days to read it, which I think is pretty good for such a long book. The way the story's told, it's kind of done by 3 different perspectives, sort of. So the first one is with the kids in Derry. They're 11 to 12, and that's in 1958. And then it also tells it from the perspective of those same kids as adults in 1985. And then there's also a third bit where it's kind of the history of the town. One of the main characters is providing the history of the town that they live in, and that's done in the same time period as when the adults are, so in 1985, but it's given a rundown of all the way into the 1800s type of thing. I really, really liked it. It kept me going the entire time. So I've heard some things that people found it to be slow, or that there was too much detail in it. I loved all the detail. I loved all the character development they had in there. I think the only character I would have liked to have more for is Stan, but I loved everything. I think it was until the last 150 pages. I didn't really like those that much. I wasn't a huge fan of how the book ended. I'm not gonna give any spoilers. I'll do spoilers later. But I didn't love how the book ended, but it was still good. I mean, you were reading 1,000 pages of loving it, and you only have 150 that you didn't like. It's pretty good. I didn't really find this book scary. I know it's a horror book. It didn't scare me. It was more I found it creepy, particularly the adults' perspective, just because of the certain situations that's happening with them. That I found creepy, but nothing was really scary. I was surprised how much I enjoyed this book, especially because there is a significant amount of adult perspective. I think probably 400, 500 pages, maybe 400, is told from the adult's perspective, and I was bummed about that because I love reading from kids' point of view, but I actually really love the adult stuff, and a lot of it is flashbacks from when they were kids, so just told from their perspective. So it was really good, and I really recommend this book, but there are some heavier themes in here, so keep that in mind when you read it, but it was really, really good. I'll give a quick synopsis of it. So it's these kids, they live in Derry, and they're called the Losers Club, and there's just this group of kids, and there's all this creepy stuff, lots of disappearances, with mostly kids, but some adults too, that are going missing, and no one's really looking into it, and it happens about every 27 years. There'll be a big boost of disappearances, and there's been nothing done about it. No one's been caught for it. And so these kids are we're gonna deal with this. Now I'm gonna talk about the spoiler stuff, so if you haven't read it and you want to read it before hearing anything about it, go away now. I will see you next time. But this is the spoiler stuff. So first one is Georgie dies. That's Ben's younger brother. It happens in the first chapter of the book, is that he dies. I mean, it wasn't that sad for me because you don't know him very well. It's right off the bat, the first 20 pages. But there was this thing that happened in that section where he goes into the basement for a little bit to grab something, and there's this can, and it has a little turtle on it, and then throughout the book, there's continuous mentions of this turtle, and I didn't know if it was that turtle that they were talking about, because you don't find out until so much later in the book what this turtle is. And I kept being how is that turtle wasn't important at all? Why are we still talking about it? But that was the first bit. And then it goes into talking about the murders that have happened several years later, you find out that the town is super homophobic and that they're really racist. So there's a lot of slurs in this book. Then goes into Mike. So there's the losers. Mike is one of the losers. There's 7 of them. So there's Bill, Mike, Stan, Richie, Eddie, Beverly, and Ben. And so Mike is like the historian of the group, and he's the one that's giving us the history throughout the story. So he makes these calls, basically. Because this monster that they meant to defeat when they were younger has come back now. And so they made a deal when they were younger that they would come back and kill this monster. They would try again. And so Mike makes these calls to all these people that he hasn't talked to in years, to have them all come back. At that point, that's kind of when things start happening. So when he calls all the characters, you get to see like a snapshot of what's been going on in their lives now that they're older from all of the characters. Unfortunately, Stan the man, my favorite, he dies. He kills himself because it doesn't really talk about why, but we kind of assume that it's because he couldn't take all of these memories flooding back about it. It's what the monster, they call it it. About him coming back, and I think that was too much for Stanny Boy. So we lose Stan, which sucked. But in the book, Eddie views Bill as a god. Everything Bill does, Eddie loves it. Bill, he's kind of like the go-to guy in the group. He's the leader of the losers, and Eddie worships him. And it seemed like every loser kind of had a crush on Bill. Like, they just loved what he was doing. That was really funny. I thought that was funny to read about. We also get introduced to the bullies in the book, the main one being Henry Bowers. He's like the leader of the bullies group, the Bowers gang. And we get introduced to them because they go after Ben, one of the losers, and you get like this huge attack scene, which was really fun to read. And then following from there, that's when Ben meets the other kids, some of them who are in the Losers Club. One of my favorite parts about the book, so I'm just gonna go through like the scenes that I loved. The first one I think that comes up is that Richie asks Ben and Beverly to go to the movies with him. He calls up Ben because all of his other friends are busy, and Ben gets so excited about it. He doesn't have enough money to pay, and Richie's like, "That's okay, I'll just pay and you owe me, just Ozies." And Ben's so excited about this idea of Ozies because he doesn't have friends. He's never had any friends, and this was crazy. He's so excited. And as they're going, as Richie's walking to the theater to meet up with Ben, he sees Beverly, and he kind of asks her out on a date, sort of. I don't think he intends it to be, but he's like, "Oh, I'll pay for you." And she's like, "Oh, Richie, asking me out on a date." So I really liked that. That was a really cute part. I also really liked the interaction between Richie and his parents the first time, because Richie's parents suck, but the first time you meet them, they're kind of fun. And Richie's asking for allowance to go to the movies, and just his back and forth with his father, I thought it was really funny. I also really loved Bill and his bike Silver. He loves his bike Silver so much. It's way too big for him. I also thought, like, how insane Henry is. So after they defeat it the first time as they were kids, and you go on and you read them as adults, you find out that Henry Bowers, so the bully, gets locked up in a mental facility because he kills his dad and all of his friends, and then he gets locked up in this mental health unit, and he has gone insane. And so you get to read about that and him breaking out, and that was really interesting. Other stuff that I really liked, when Bill and Richie went to the Neibolt house, I really liked how Bill was real sweet to him when she started crying. I loved the smokehouse scene when they're all getting into this clubhouse, like underground clubhouse that they've built, and they basically smoke themselves until they have hallucinations. And Richie and Mike are the only ones that are able to stay in long enough to get hallucinations, but that's when they kind of get told like where it came from. Eddie and Mr. Keen, when Mr. Keen is telling Eddie that his medication is fake, and Eddie is just freaking out. I really enjoyed that. I thought the scene where Beverly, as an adult, is going back to her father's house to see if he's still there, and she meets this old woman that she thought her dad was still going to be there, but she gets like tricked by it. It's this whole thing that goes on with this old crazy woman. That was a really fun scene. I loved reading about the history that Mike gives. And I also really enjoyed right when the losers are about to get into the sewer, and their first little bit in the sewer, there's this really cute scene where they're being chased by the Bowers, and Eddie has a broken arm, and so Bill has to give him a piggyback down the ladder, And I just, thinking about how much Eddie loves Bill was so sweet reading that. After that, after they've gone into the sewer and they've kind of done their first bit in the sewer, that's when the book started to not be as great for me. That's around the 1,000-page mark. I didn't really like the ending of the book. How it ends is like so this clown shapeshifter thing has been around since the beginning of time, basically. It's him and this turtle. And this turtle, like, created the universe. He threw up, and this universe was created. So that's the elusive turtle that you're being hinted at. But how they go in and defeat it is Bill, like, goes onto another spiritual plane, or, like, a third dimension or something, and just wills it to be sad and, like, destroy him. And it doesn't work the first time. They think they destroyed him, but they didn't. And so they come back as adults, they destroy him again, and that's when Eddie dies, is when they're down there. And they leave Eddie down there, which sucked. I hated that. But I thought that was just really weird. I mean, I don't know how I would have ended it. I don't know what I was expecting it to be. It wasn't that, and the movie's not like that at all. I haven't seen the miniseries yet, but I really want to. So I don't know how that ends. But there's that at the end. The void's just so weird. The turtle that you get hyped up to hear about, because they mention it every few hundred pages, and it isn't until the very end that you find out what this turtle is, and I was so excited. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't wait. Can't wait for this turtle. And then it was that, and I was like, oh, well that's not what I was hoping for. But I mean, it's okay. And then as they're leaving the sewer, there's this weird scene where all the kids have sex with each other. The idea of is they've lost their unity as a group. So the way Beverly thinks to unify them is the token only girl in the group, she has sex with all of them. That was weird to read about, and just weird. I didn't like that. Didn't think it really needed to be there. The part of the ending I didn't really like is that as soon as they leave the sewer, they cut their hands, and they put their hands together and they make their circle, and they promise they'll come back if it's not dead. And then they just leave. And they stop really being friends. All 7 of them never hang out again. Like, they'll hang out in, like, 2s or 3s, but it's never that losers club. And that bummed me out that it ends so fast. I know that the big part of it is they forget everything that's happened, and so when they come back as adults, they have to go through this process of remembering again, but I wasn't expecting it to happen so soon. I thought it would wait until they've all kind of moved away from each other, not the moment they left the sewer. But that was that. I didn't really like that. I really would have liked more Stan character development, because I think he's a really fun character. We didn't have that, so that was too bad. But yeah, that was the book. That was all my spoilers. I really liked it. So if you guys want, what I do, I'll link my Instagram below. But while I'm reading books, and I did this while I was reading it, as I go through and I read, I make Instagram stories, certain situations that I thought was really funny. I was like, oh my god, can't believe that happened. So if you're ever interested, I post right when I've started a book, and then I will Instagram story until I finish it. So you kind of get updates as I'm reading it, and then you can read it along with me if you want. So there's that to do. Also, I just wanted to mention, my phone, because I'm filming this on my phone, it keeps trying to center on Frida Kahlo, because it's picking her up as a face, and I just wanted to mention that, because that's so funny. But, so this is book talk number 2 for It by Stephen King. It was super good. I don't know when I'll have another book tub up, because I'm in school right now, so it's hard for me to read all the time. But, yeah. Thanks for watching. If you liked this, hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff. I will be trying to post more videos, so I will see you guys later. Bye!